Hey folks, how's it going? This is Mike, Gray 1951, and I'd like to do my top 10 science fiction films for Top 10 Tuesday, along with my friends, DVD Collector 1974, Movie Collector 666, and The Joker 5150, and a lot of other people who are taking part in this. And this is my first time doing a Top 10 Tuesdays, so I'm glad to be here. And here are my movies, okay? And like all these lists, I mean, this could change daily. It could change within the next 5 minutes, but here's the general idea of my favorite science fiction films. All right, starting off with It Conquered the World from 1956, directed by Roger Corman, very low budget film. Stars Lee Van Cleef and Peter Graves and Beverly Garland, and it's about Lee Van Cleef plays a scientist who has made contact with someone from the planet Venus, and he believes that this alien is benevolent and wants to get to know people and be a part of society, blah, blah, blah. What he doesn't know is that the alien is slowly taking over his mind and the minds of other people in the community so that they can prepare for an invasion of Earth. So it's a very good movie, taken very seriously. As Beverly Garland once said about her career in science fiction and horror films, they played those parts like they were Shakespeare. So they make themselves believable. And the only thing about the movie that is not believable is the monster from Venus, who is actually kind of funny. They must have had a very low budget for this monster because he looks kind of like a cucumber with teeth, right? He just kind of floats along. But anyway, that doesn't spoil it. It is still a great, fun science fiction movie. So that's my number 10. Coming in at number 9 is Planet of the Vampires, an Italian film directed by Mario Bava and released in 1966. The original title of this was Terror in Space. Okay, and it has nothing whatsoever to do with vampires. The title was changed when it was brought to America by American International Pictures. I guess they wanted a more catchy title, but there are no vampires in the film. But Barry Sullivan stars as a ship's captain. There are two ships from Earth exploring another planet because they've been receiving strange signals, and they go to this planet to find out what's going on. And what they find is that there are disembodied, kind of invisible aliens who have the ability to possess the bodies of the dead, and so they can conquer the world. And so the plot is kind of similar to Invasion of the Body Snatchers and Invisible Invaders, things like that. But the story is not what's important. What's important is the atmosphere that Bava, who is also the cinematographer, is able to put into this film. It's made in beautiful color, and Bava, of course, is known for making horror films, and I think this may have been his maybe his second foray into science fiction, and it's just beautiful. The atmosphere, the sound effects, all done on a very low budget, are just first rate, and you can actually just watch the movie and not care about the story. This is so cool to look at. All right, coming in at number 8, this is one of my favorite Star Trek film. I'm a Trekkie, so I love pretty much all the Star Trek films, but this is my number 1. This is Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home, which I don't know. A lot of people think that other Star Trek movies are the best one, but I like this because it has so much humanity in it, and it humanizes all the characters in a way that none of the others had done before. And it also has a lot of humor. It has a great story about the environment of the Earth being affected by what we're doing to it. Saving the whales means we're saving humanity. It's just a beautiful story, and it just has just a real fun factor to it. And so yeah. And my next film, I'm going to do something a little different and have a tie here between the original version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1956 and the remake that came out in 1978. The first one was directed by Don Siegel. It stars Kevin McCarthy and Donna Winter, and it's just a real classic about again, aliens from outer space who have the ability to create a new version of human beings just simply for survival. But the analogy here, it's kind of metaphorical about the onslaught of communism and people who were just terrified of being swept up by that kind of movement in the 1950s, and they thought that becoming communist would mean that it would take away your soul, take away the soul of the country, the soul of the individual. So the special effects are kind of minimal in this. What's important is the story and the interaction of the characters. And in the 1978 remake by Philip Kaufman stars Donald Sutherland, Brooke Adams, Jeff Goldblum, Veronica Cartwright, and Leonard Nimoy. And a great role for Leonard Nimoy. The special effects kind of come well, they're much more important, and they do the story a lot differently, but it's still about the human interaction, the loss of humanity, the loss of emotion, and the interaction between the characters. And all the actors are really good. And Kevin McCarthy plays a cameo role in this. At the end of the original version, he was running. He was trying to warn people. He was in traffic, and he was trying to say, "You're next, you're next, they're here." And so in the 1978 version, he's 20 years older, and he's still doing the same thing. So it's very interesting. All right, coming in at, see, what was that, number 7, I guess, is John Frankenheimer's Seconds from 1966, starring Rock Hudson. Now, this is not so much a science fiction movie as it's a futuristic movie. It doesn't have the ambiance that you expect in most science fiction films. But here's how it's described on the back of the cover: as a sinister science fiction inflected dispatch from the fractured 1960s. Okay, has to do with a technology that would enable somebody to have the ultimate American dream, which is to completely reinvent yourself, to completely dispose of your old life, your old self, and become someone else. Because people are convinced that they could do that. If I were younger, if I were better looking, if my hair would grow back, if you had a different wife, if you lived in a beautiful place, then you would find happiness, right? Or would you find the ultimate nightmare? Which is exactly what happens in this film. This is a very difficult film to watch in the sense that it's not uplifting in any sense whatsoever, but it's very worthwhile, so I highly recommend it. Okay? Next up, Stanley Kubrick's classic, 2001: A Space Odyssey. A lot of people think this is very slow and laborious, and it is, but it's worthwhile. I mean, it just has a philosophical. Oh God, what am I trying to say? I'm babbling here. It just talks about the origins of life. I don't really understand everything about the story and everything about the ending, and I don't really care. It's fascinating to watch. It's fascinating to watch the set pieces and yeah, good performances by Keir Dullea and Gary Lockwood. And okay, great movie. Next up is Dark City, which is described by a lot of people, and I think the filmmakers themselves, as being a film noir in outer space. Okay, it's a mystery. A city which is always dark. It's always in the night, and there are aliens controlling this strange city. They shut the city down. They move things. They just get rid of buildings. They bring new buildings in. They rearrange people. They rearrange their lives, and then they start up like a whole new story. So people have no sense. They're given a sense of who they are by these aliens who are controlling them, and it's a fascinating story. Stars Rufus Sewell, Kiefer Sutherland, Jennifer Connelly, and William Hurt. Highly recommended film. Great visuals in this movie. Next up, the Steven Spielberg classic, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. This film, for me, it's been magical every time I watched it. I mean, I saw it when it first came out in 1977, and everybody in the theater was just in awe when the climax was happening and that gigantic spaceship was landing on Devil's Tower. I mean, it's just, and I've never lost that sense of magic when I watch this film. And Richard Dreyfuss is so good in this. He kind of symbolizes every sci-fi nerd that ever lived. Okay, every Trekkie, every Star Wars fan that ever lived, who wanted so much for things like this to be real and to somehow see it for yourself and to prove to everybody and say, yes, it is real, it did happen. So yeah, I never get tired of watching this. All right. Next up is a movie from 1958 called It, The Terror from Beyond Space. Low-budget sci-fi, which is looked upon as being the basis for the story of Alien, which came about 20 years later. And Marshall Thompson stars as a man who is being rescued from a planet and also arrested because he's being accused of murdering his entire crew. And he's insisting that, no, I didn't do it. There was a creature that, I don't know where this creature is now, but the creature killed all these people and he tried to kill me as well. Well, of course nobody believes him, but what nobody realizes is that as this rescue ship is taking off, the creature has gotten on board. And it has this constant feeling of tension that just goes from start to finish and keeps building and building. The set pieces, the spaceship, really, really first rate for such a low budget film. And cool monster as well. All right. And finally, coming in at number 1, I've talked about this film many times, and I have to say it's my number 1 science fiction film, and that is Forbidden Planet, 1956, MGM, big budget film, starring Walter Pidgeon and Francis and Leslie Nielsen and Robbie the Robot, and just a wonderful movie all the way around. And once again, just like Close Encounters, the magic is still there. I've loved this movie ever since I was a kid, and I love it as much today when I'm not a kid. So, all right, those are my movies, and comments are welcome. Thanks for watching.